And I am happy to present you with this video, which will provide significant updates on my upcoming book, Godzilla, the Monster Fight Record, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I had stated previously that my goal was to get these books out within like the August-September time frame to try and come in before the release of the next Godzilla movie produced by Toho Studios. Looks like we're going to meet that. We're nearing the finish line. Volume 1 is, let's say, 98.5% done. The edit is complete. Proofreading is done. I think it's, as far as content goes, it's going to get as good as it's going to get. It's just a matter of like a few fine touches here and there and formatting and things like that. So Volume 1 is very, very close to being done. All the content that I wanted in there is in there, and the edit is complete, proofread is complete. So it's just, again, few small touches here and there, and then we will be good to go. Research and all that, all done. Volume 2, let's say that one's more in like the 85% done category because the edit is still ongoing, proofreading still ongoing, but again, all of the content that's going to go into the book, that's all done, and all the research is done. So it's just a matter of fine-tuning it and getting it ready for release, and I'm really, really happy about that, because I started this project back during the early days of the pandemic when I was trapped inside day after day, week after week, month after month, and I guess I kind of got cabin fever and just went insane. I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a Godzilla book. Why not? Why not me? So I decided to tackle this subject of writing a Godzilla book focusing on Godzilla's fight record in his film history. So what is Godzilla's win-loss record across all of the Godzilla films and the in-scope film, the non-Godzilla in-scope films that I've also covered in the book, which would include films like War of the Gargantuas, Kong Skull Island, the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, things like that. So split into 2 volumes. Volume 1 will cover the entirety of the Showa period, which is 1954 to 1975, at least in kaiju terms, that's the Showa period. And Volume 2 will cover everything that came after. So anything that came after 1975, Heisei, Millennium, Reiwa, all that stuff, that's all going to be covered in Volume 2. And we're getting very, very, very close to the end there. But I am excited to provide some very important updates in regards to the book. And as promised, I'm going to reveal to you who wrote the foreword of the book, and I'm going to reveal the covers of both Volumes 1 and 2 here in this video. So hopefully you all like it, and hopefully it'll whet your appetite for when the book is ultimately released in a few months. So again, I'm very excited about this. This is a project that's a long time in the making, and it's finally, there's that light at the end of the tunnel. It's coming out for sure. But let's get started on the forewords. Now, when I first started this thing and I considered, like, who am I going to ask to write the foreword for this thing, I knew I didn't want to ask somebody who participated in making a Godzilla movie, although I'm sure, you know, I'd considered, you know, possibly reaching out to Michael Dougherty or Gareth Edwards or O'Shea Jackson Jr., who was in Godzilla King of the Monsters and is a lifelong fan, much like myself. But number one, you know, being a complete novice at this, I'm like, I wouldn't know how unholy, you know, how on earth I would even begin to reach out to these people in the entertainment industry. And number two, I felt like, no, I kind of want to take it in a direction where I would reach out to people who kind of started off like me in terms of they were fans of Godzilla, lifelong fans, got into it young, and then Godzilla's existence kind of inspired them creatively to create a website or create internet content or write some books and things like that. And because that's very much the same well that I'm drawing from, where I was a lifelong fan of Godzilla, and now I've just finally decided I'm going to write my own book. And following the long line of all the other Godzilla authors that came before me, the Steve Reifels, the Ed Godziszewski, sorry if I mispronounced that name, the David Kallitz, the John LeMays, those type of people. And I decided to just throw my name into that hat. And I wanted the foreword to be written by somebody who kind of came from that same place, like started as a fan and then used that fandom to create and be creative and use their imagination to add something to Godzilla's legacy. And I reached out to 3 people. And I thought, you know, I'm thinking law of averages, you know, if I reach out to 3, one of them will get back to me, right? I'll hear back from at least one of them. Turns out I underestimated. Turns out all 3 of them got back to me. And I ended up with 3 forewords. And I was very grateful to all 3 of them for helping me out with this process and to have their voices involved in some capacity in this project of mine really did mean a lot, because these were three people that were very important figures in my life as a Godzilla fan, at least in the internet age, being a Godzilla fan. And to have their voices attached to my own project means a lot to me, and I was very excited to have them involved. And I ultimately decided that, okay, I've got 3 forewords here. I'm going to use all 3 of them, and all 3 of them will be featured in both Volume 1 and 2. So, you know, you'll be seeing both forewords in both volumes, but I was so flattered and so amazed that all 3 of them got back to me and gave me really good forewords for the book, that I decided to just use all 3 in both volumes. So regardless, if you only pick up 1 volume, which why would you only get 1 volume? Get 2, you get the full record. But you'll be seeing all 3 of those forewords in both volumes. Which is unusual, but it's my book, it's my project, and I'm self-publishing, so I'm doing whatever the heck I want with it. So, now who wrote the forewords? First of all, first name I'm going to throw out there is Barry Goldberg. Now, who is Barry Goldberg? When I was a young Godzilla fan, getting on the internet, the old AOL days, way back in the olden times of the internet, the Wild West days of the internet, fan sites were a fairly common thing. I feel like with fan sites now, everything's just kind of homogenized into Reddit and just big super sites. It's kind of like how there are no specialty stores anymore. It's all just kind of big chains like Target and various other things like that. But back in those days, they were like more kind of smaller scale, personalized fan sites. And, you know, being, you know, such a young fan on the internet back then and seeing how many Godzilla fan sites there were, I was blown away by it, because when I was younger, there weren't a whole lot of Godzilla fans around me. So I thought I was, of all the interests and hobbies I had, Godzilla was one where I felt kind of isolated, because there weren't that many other people around me that were fans. So to get on the internet and see, oh my god, there's a whole world of Godzilla fans out there, and to feel connected in that way really meant a lot. And again, this is before social media or anything like that, or even emailing was still kind of this. Emailing existed, but it was kind of like this. So, oh my god, can I do that? Should I email these people? I don't know. It's like I'd probably be bugging them or something. So, the first website that I remember going to was Barry's Temple of Godzilla, a site that is still up to this day and looks mostly the same as how it did when I first got on it. Not exactly. There have been some changes to it, but the site looks very similar to how it did when I was a young fan all those years ago. You know, we're talking over 2 decades. And anytime I see something like that, it always brings a smile on my face. It's like how some people are nostalgic for the Space Jam movie website. That looks exactly as it did back in 1996. It's weird the things I get nostalgic for now. It's so strange. But Barry's Temple of Godzilla was the first big Godzilla fan website that I remember going to. And not only that, it was the first place I ever saw some kind of a Godzilla win-loss record, which I do mention in the book. I managed to track down that old win-loss record that I originally found on Barry's website, and how that was kind of the starting point of me getting to this point of ultimately writing this book. And I reached out to Barry on a whim, because the Barry's Temple of Godzilla, the site hasn't been updated in quite a while, and I found his email, and I'm like, I don't even know if this works, but I'm just going to do it on a lark and see what happens. And he got back to me, and I got a forward from it, and he was very nice, very gracious, and it was awesome to have him once again involved in the Godzilla fan community in some capacity. And like I said, because to me, like, this whole like search for a Godzilla fight record kind of started with me finding that website. So to have him involved in this, I think is very, very cool, and something I was very excited and very happy about when he got back to me. So so we've got Barry Goldberg. That was awesome. Thank you again, Barry, for writing that forward for me. It really meant a lot. Number 2 is author John LeMay. And I've already mentioned the long list of Godzilla authors that came before me, and there were a lot of them. But John LeMay's books, specifically the big book of Japanese giant monsters, volumes 1, 2, and 3, were big influences on me as far as deciding to throw my name in the hat and becoming a Godzilla author myself, because I really enjoyed his perspective on the entire history of Japanese giant monsters, and he reviewed just about everything you could imagine. And because of those books, I found out about movies that I had never seen before. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I should check that one out and this one out. And Volume 3 in particular I thought was great because it covered all of the Godzilla and giant monster kaiju projects that never got made. So it was like this whole... it was this whole book about all of the wacky, insane Godzilla films that never got produced, and that was really enjoyable to read because I'd heard rumors and I'd seen concept art and fan speculations of years of what projects were considered and which ones got dropped and which ones were made up by the fans or whatever. So to get like a definitive list of, okay, here's all of the projects that got put into development hell or ended up turning into something else or got dropped entirely. Here's the full record of those movies. And that was awesome to see. And I loved having that information just all put into that one book. Very informative. And he's written other books, but I really do recommend the big book of Japanese giant monsters, because I think you'll get pretty much a full history of the entirety of the genre. And when I reached out to him, he was very enthusiastic and was very happy to help me out, gave me some pointers on the formatting of the book, which I greatly appreciated. Again, first-time author, I dove into this thing just head first without a bathing suit or whatever, and like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'll just learn it as I go, which is not the best way to do anything, but that's how I handled this book. So to get any kind of pointers or any kind of advice from anybody was definitely welcome, and to get that advice from somebody who has experience writing Godzilla books, that was even better. So John LeMay is an expert on the subject. He is a very knowledgeable Godzilla fan through and through. He's also participated in some of the Kaiju Masterclass discussions and panels and things like that, those online panels that were going around during the pandemic, and boy did I welcome those when those came out. It gave me something to watch and enjoy during a time when I was, again, getting cabin fever. And I really appreciated his help and him, once again, lending his voice to my own project was greatly appreciated. And I was really thankful that he got back to me and wrote a foreword for me as well. So you'll be seeing John LeMay's name in the book and his foreword as well. And once again, thank you so much, John, for giving me your advice and sending over a foreword to me for this book. I really appreciated it. Now, last on the list of the third person I reached out to, and this one, of the three I reached out to, he was the one that I was least expecting to hear back from because of how busy he is and how much of a presence he has online. I don't know, like, how often he checks his emails or anything like that, and he seems like such a busy guy that I was like, that one was just a total shot in the dark that ended up working out. And that is headofcinemassacre.com, James Rolfe, who I'd kind of, and I put heavy Dr. Evil size quotation marks around that, kind of worked with when he made his movie, The Angry Video Game Nerd Movie. I have a very brief cameo in that in the film's introduction. I filmed myself talking about the AVGN, sent it over to him, and he used it in the movie as part of the introduction, which was, because of James Rolfe, I have an IMDb page, which is kind of crazy, but it was still fun to see. And I remember when the movie dropped, I was at work that day, and it was a Friday, and a friend of mine who ended up being the best man at my wedding, he called me up in the middle of work, and he's like, dude, you're in the movie. And it shocked me because I remember going through that whole process and the emails back and forth a little bit, and I signed an NDA and things like that. And I was like, he had everybody do that. I'm sure he got like 3,000, submissions. He's just having everybody sign an NDA, and he's just going to pick and choose which ones he wants. That doesn't mean I'm going to actually be in the movie. Turns out I was in the movie, which blew my mind when I saw it. But here he is once again helping me out and lending his voice to my own Godzilla-related project. And, James as a guy, I'm thinking back here, if memory serves me correctly, his Karate Kid review was probably the first video I ever watched on YouTube, so he's been there since the beginning as far as the YouTube age of content creation, and I've been a huge fan of the Angry Video Game Nerd ever since, because it was always this fun look back at things that we played with as kids, and you know, a good nostalgic romp. No matter how bad the games were, it was always fun and nostalgic to see him playing these old games that I recognize. I also really enjoyed his Board Games series, going back and looking back at some of those crazy board games that we used to play back in the day. So that one I also enjoyed as well. But one of my favorite things that he ever did was Monster Madness. You know, every October he would review a bunch of monster movies, and I believe it was the second year he did all of the Godzilla movies up to that point, up to Godzilla Final Wars. And he spent an entire month talking about Godzilla, and considering how big a fan he is of Godzilla and the classic monster movies, and, you know, like, he's a big a fan of the Universal Monster movie. He's the first person I've ever known that is a bigger fan of the Universal Monster movies than I am. Like, he knows more about those movies than I do, and that just drove me, that just blew me out of the water, because again, growing up, nobody else was watching Wolfman or Dracula or Frankenstein like I was, but James did. So I felt like a bit of a, I don't want to say kindred spirit, but kind of like a fellow like-minded individual who's like into the same like nerdy crap that I'm into, and it drew me into his material more. So I reached out to him because he was one of the inspirations that ultimately led me down this road, and he got back to me, and once again he seemed very enthusiastic. He was very happy to help me out, wrote a very good foreword, asked me what I wanted, and seemed very excited about the project. So I got a foreword from him as well, and I was ecstatic to hear back from him as well. And I was ecstatic to hear back from all three of them. If I'd only gotten one of those three, I would have been very, very happy. And I thought, oh God, if I can get two, I can use one for Volume 1 and one for Volume 2, and I'll be set. To hear back from all three of them kind of blew my mind, and I did not expect that, to be perfectly honest. I was very, very shocked, but pleasantly so. And I am so grateful that they helped me and worked with me to help add to this project that I'm very excited about, and hopefully, assuming there are no bumps in the road, hopefully it'll be out later this year. And the work that I put in for the last 3+ years or so will finally pay off in some capacity, and you all get to enjoy that. So once again, huge hearty thank you to John LeMay, Barry Goldberg, and James Rolfe for helping me out in getting this dream project of mine finished. I'm very excited to get the final product out there and see how it all goes. Now it's time for the big one. It is time for me to reveal the covers of both Volume 1 and 2. So get ready, here they come. 3, 2, 1, and ta-da! They are in all their glory, and I am very happy with how these covers turned out, especially considering how they got made. And chalk this up to my inexperience as an author, but when I decided to go the self-publishing route, what I didn't realize was that it's like, oh, cover art and all that other stuff, you're going to have to supply that stuff yourself. You're going to have to go out and find the people, because the publishing house isn't going to do it for you. You're fully in charge of everything, so you've got to make all this stuff happen. So I initially went around online and started getting quotes from different artists and things, and their portfolios were very good, but when I saw the quotes, I was like, wow, that's very expensive. And am I willing to bite the bullet and pay that much money? Because it was going to be even more expensive for me, because I needed 2 covers because I was doing 2 volumes, and I ultimately decided not to go that route with the more professional book cover artists, and I decided to go to Fiverr, and hopefully I said it won't be as good, but I'll find something on there that'll be passable, and it'll be much, much cheaper. And I ended up working with this guy who generated art through AI, which admittedly I had no faith in, but I gave it a shot, and ultimately I was very happy with what I got. So if this is the future of AI, I mean, this is, and I told the guy right from the start the limitations in creating these covers, because I told him it's like these covers cannot have Godzilla on the cover. And I want to state now, so if any of Toho's lawyers see this or anything, that is not Godzilla on the cover. It is it's 2 monsters that feel like they could fit in the world of Godzilla, which is what I was going for and what I wanted, but that is not Godzilla. I want to make that perfectly clear. It is not Godzilla. In fact, I'm taking it right now. the darker skin monster, the bluish, darker one, I'm going to name that one Notzilla. And the yellow one, who kind of looks like Ghidorah, a little bit like it's cut from the cloth of Ghidorah, but not really. I'm going to name that one Thundara, because I'm a Thundercats fan, and I'm going to use that name. So these are not Toho-created monsters. I was very clear about that when I was creating, I was working with the guy to create these. It's like, I can't have Godzilla on the cover because he's a copyrighted image, and I don't want Toho breathing down my neck and sending me a cease and desist and all that other fun stuff. So the monsters are designed generically on purpose to avoid like any kind of legal entanglements. But with those limitations in place, I was very happy with how the covers came out. And actually, when the artist got back to me, he sent me several options, not just these two. But I picked these two because the Volume 1 cover very much to me kind of invoked the overall intention of the book and what I'm trying to convey and get across. But also kind of looks like an old school Showa cover. It looks like it's inspired by an old school Showa cover, like a War of the Gargantuas or something akin to that. And the second poster looks like, or the second cover looks like a movie poster for one of the more modern era Godzilla films. And something I would have expected to see as a cover for one of the Heisei era films, or somewhat close to it. So I selected that one. I thought that was the best looking one of all the options I got sent. So those are the two images I settled on, and I am, again, considering all the restrictions and limitations, me getting these covers, I thought they came out very, very well, and I showed them to friends and family. They seem to love them too. So those are the covers, and that is how my book is going to look. So again, I'm very excited about all this. It's like, once I saw those covers, I was like, oh my god, this is actually happening. This is real. And this thing is going to get done. But for right now, that is all I have as far as updates on the book. This is definitely the biggest update I've provided on this channel thus far. Like I said, we're shooting for that August-September time frame, and I'm going to be a new father by that point. So my schedule is going to be thrown out of whack like nobody's business. We'll see how that impacts everything, but it's looking right now like we're going to meet that deadline, and I'm going to get both of those books out and available on Amazon and Kindle and all of that other fun stuff. So, but like I said, that is all I have for you now. There's a bunch of Godzilla-related stuff coming out soon, like the new Toho movie and the Apple Plus show and the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie, which apparently has King Louie as the villain. Right now, all that stuff is just kind of, we don't really know a whole lot about it, and it's all just up in the air, and I hope it all goes well, but really my concern was getting these books out before the November film gets released. So it's funny, I'll release this book with the fight record, then the new movie comes out that makes the record obsolete. I don't know if that was a good strategy on my bold strategy, Patrick. Let's see if it works out for him. But yeah, all those other projects, I don't really have a whole lot to say right now because it's all just, so much of it is just up in the air, and we'll just have to wait and see. And one thing I will say, I recommend checking out Toho's Godzilla YouTube channel because they're posting a bunch of stuff over there that's a lot of fun. They are posting this animated chibi Godzilla series that is super, super sarcastic and super funny. And initially when I saw the artwork, it looks like a cutesy style of artwork, and I kind of rolled my eyes at it. But then I listened to it and I watched it with English subtitles. I was like, oh wow, this is actually really funny. So I recommend checking that out. And there's also they've been dropping on their YouTube channel the Godzilla Island series, which I talked about many moons ago when I was doing Godzilla reviews on this channel, and it was this big curiosity of like this series of micro episodes that involved monsters, creating the monsters using Bandai action figures and things like that. And I'd known about it for years and years, but it never came to the States. Well, now it's being posted on the YouTube channel, 2 episodes a week, and it's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be, but it is a lot of fun to watch. They did do, one thing they did do that kind of drove me up a wall in a good way, where it was just, my jaw hit the floor when I saw it. They did a Godzilla courtroom drama where Godzilla was put on trial. And I was like, that's the greatest stupid thing I've ever seen. I kind of love this. So if you want some fresh Godzilla material, I think Toho's YouTube channel is providing a lot. There's also, I haven't watched it yet, but there's that Godzilla Ban, or I forget the name of it, but it's like a puppet show. And I guess it's a spiritual successor to Godzilla Island. And I've heard good things about that, so I might want to check that out. They're into like 3 seasons of that, so I'm way behind. But yeah, check out Toho's YouTube channel. They've got a lot of cool stuff over there. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and stay tuned for more, because I will have more updates for the book as we get closer and closer to publication. But this is definitely the biggest update I've provided on this channel thus far, and I'm very, very excited to have it all for you now. But that is all I have for you right now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.